Everyone, my name is Dr. Bartholomay, and I am here today to talk to you a little bit about mental wellness resources. In this presentation, I wanted to balance a mixture of how to find mental wellness resources, as well as introducing you to some resources that you already have access to, and some that you can certainly gain access to fairly easily. So we'll do a bit of a mixture of both. I didn't want to focus too much on specific resources as they tend to change a lot and change very quickly. So hopefully we can get you some really up-to-date information on resources that I usually give to people that I am working with clinically, and teach you all how to access resources beyond. The first major mental wellness resource that is important for students to know about is the Student Health Center and Student Health Counseling. So I have listed here just the general link for their website. Honestly speaking, when I am looking up resources, the best thing I think you can do is type in UNK and counseling or some similar terms in Google. So a couple things I wanted to draw your attention to regarding this. So counseling sessions are free for students because you essentially already pay for that in your student fees. So make sure that you're taking advantage of that. Essentially, it's a service you pay for, you may as well use it. And so that's specific for in-person students. For online students, I know that there's an additional fee for that. So of course, the number of that kind of differs from semester to semester, but those are great options. And then as far as where the health center is located and the counseling center, so the psychology department is located here in Copeland Hall, the bottom part of this picture here, and then the counseling center is located within the student health center, just right next door from us. So very, very easy to access. And at least at this point in time, they are still offering resources for telehealth visits, so virtual visits. So kind of a few other resources related to this. So the counseling center, anytime you meet with a counselor, the conversation that you have will be confidential regarding your mental well-being. So there are very rare circumstances in which they break confidentiality, which is not necessarily true for some of these other services. So if that's a concern you have, definitely talk to the counseling center staff and they can give you a little bit more detail. The UNK Health Promotion Office also provides a little bit more information about health promotion, kind of generally speaking, because we know that physical and mental health are very closely related. So that may also be really helpful in managing stress. Together All is a website where you can anonymously discuss well-being with other students. Peer wellness coaches. So this is something offered by UNK where other students you would actually meet with to promote wellness. So those are the wellness coaches, are actually students who are really interested in that. The UNK Care Team. So this is a network that essentially links students and staff, so students who are struggling in some way. And then the SAFE Center is the Center for Intimate Partner Violence, or what you might see listed as IPV. So lots of resources available for students for sure. And I think it's important if you're really interested or looking for some resources to get connected and just look those up. Another important topic, talking about any gender-based violence or intimate partner violence. So of course, we hope that this never happens to you while you're a UNK student, or in general, but it's important for you to be aware of what the resources are if you're involved in any gender-based violence. So while enrolled at UNK, again, here's the website for Title IX resources. So Title IX is the law that protects anyone involved at a university against any gender-based violence, harassment, discrimination, or anything similar to that. So again, a few other resources related to this. The Gender and Sexuality Resource Office, which is in the Student Union, and their phone number. Now, again, they are, you can report things confidentially to their office. There's also this 24-hour crisis counseling line that you can give a call, and of course, student health. And then our Title IX coordinators are the person that makes sure that we're all adhering to Title IX and there's not any harassment or discrimination happening is Alex here. So you can contact them as well. So we've talked so far about some specific resources at UNK for UNK students, but what if someone comes to you and they're looking for some resources and maybe they're not a student? Or after you graduate, you're looking for some mental wellness resources. So I have listed here what I would say is probably the best resource that you can be familiar with trying to find someone to talk about your mental health with. So I have 4 different links here. Essentially, it's all the same website, which is Psychology Today. Now, I think better than probably explaining what this means is actually showing you what this looks like. So I am going to pull up the Psychology Today website. So you can see the way that I found this was just by Google searching Psychology Today. You want to make sure that it's not one of these other sites, but actually says Psychology Today. And so right now it looks like I am defaulting to Illinois, which is interesting. So I'm just searching Kearney zip code, and what you'll see pop up here is it lists specifically mental health therapists. So there are a ton of different ways that you can look through this information. So you can look through based on the issue. So maybe you have a specific concern, whether that be ADHD, maybe it's depression, maybe it's grief, eating disorders, lots of different things. And you can actually find people who consider themselves specialists in those areas. If you're interested in using your insurance, you could just click on what kind of insurance you have, and then it'll only pull up providers that accept that kind of insurance. Assuming you really care about your therapist's gender, you can also select that. If you know the kind of therapy that might be helpful, you can search for that here as well. So age, another one. Price can be important to know. This can get a little bit tricky when we are talking about insurance coverage. But assuming that you don't have insurance coverage and you want to know actually how much out of pocket would you have to pay, you can select any of these. And a sliding scale, for those of you who are not familiar with what that means, is it usually means that the amount that you pay is based on your income. So a couple agencies I've worked in before, the sliding scale went from maybe $10 to $30, $5 to $60, so lots of variability. And then any other things, if you're really interested in someone who focuses on a specific sexual orientation in their work, if there's faith-based counseling, those are great options. A couple other things I wanted to point out. So if you actually look, so you go through looking at this, I'm just going to pull up our first provider here and just see some of what you see. So a little bit of a description of what this provider does, and all of that information if you want to kind of sort through. And then you can also see what agency are they working at. But assuming you're not looking for a therapist, say maybe you're looking for maybe someone who does online therapy, maybe a psychiatrist, or if you're looking for any sort of treatment center, like a rehab center or something like that, you can click on any of those. So it looks like there aren't any treatment centers that pop up specific in Kearney, but we could actually just broaden our search. Let's see, psychiatrist, what comes up? Okay, so I'm pulling up specific psychiatrists, which is odd, but that gives you an idea of some of those things. So lots of information that you can find there, and depending on actually where you live. So say you move outside of Kearney, you could search based on those areas too. Now I didn't pull up anything for Omaha because of course that's going to give us lots more providers, but that's an option as well. So lots and lots of resources here, and if you're ever interested in finding someone who is not through the counseling center, this is a really great option. other really important things when we're talking about mental wellness resources, of course, building connections is very important. Now, I have here listed a few websites and areas where you can start to look for building connections. So, RSOs, or those registered student organizations, are a great way to build connections, meet like minded people. Site Club is, of course, one of those that if you're interested, you kind of reach out to them. Um, if you live in the dorms, or maybe you're interested in working as an RA in one of the dorms, um, that can be a really important way to build connections. Greek life is another really great way to build connections. A couple other ones that I've noticed as well. If you actually work in a research lab, depending if there are other students in that lab, you can also, again, meet people who have similar interests and maybe similar kind of career goals too. So those are also really great ways to not only building those connections, but we know that having a good social support network is really important in our mental health too. For those of you looking at free or low cost self help resources, so if you prefer to manage your stress and your mental health independently rather than reaching out to someone, which is totally understandable, lots of people do that. There are lots of resources for that as well. My major suggestions, if that's something you're looking at, you can search self-help books and whatever topic it is. So maybe it's a self-help book, academic performance, or a self-help book for depression. Those can be really good options. Even better options for those of you again looking at maybe getting more activities. If you search stress or depression or anxiety and then the term workbook, those will actually bring up a lot of therapy resources that you might actually use if you're working with a therapist. But certainly you can try using those on your own. My biggest recommendations, kind of cautions with using this approach, is making sure that you're checking out who is the author of the book that you find. So making sure that they have appropriate credentials. So you'd want to make sure that, like for these examples, that a book is written by someone with a PhD. Hopefully that's specifically a PhD in psychology, but checking that out. Certainly there are some MDs here, like Aaron Beck, who's a pretty big figure in anxiety treatment. There are also lots of people, so especially looking at couples therapy, maybe this is going to be people who have an MSW, LMFT accreditation, or any of these other accreditations or similar, can be really important. One other thing I wanted to point out, again, as a specific UNK resource, is that there's actually a Canvas course that was put together by the Counseling Center. So Kippany Hoff, the Associate Director of the Counseling Center, actually put this together, and it has lots of resources on this as well. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this, but it gives you kind of an introduction to something that you can find. So if you just type in this Canvas course number 28590, this has lots of resources as well. So again, for those of you who are a little bit more self-guided or prefer to do that, lots and lots of resources you can access. Points that I want to make as we are wrapping up. So again, if you have any concerns about yourself or someone else, make sure that you're reaching out to someone. There are a ton of resources for that. I've listed lots and lots of phone numbers, lots of resources that you can Google. Of course, if you have immediate safety concerns about yourself or someone else, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You just dial 988. They just recently updated that phone number. Or if it's more of a concern about someone else, calling 911 or going to the nearest emergency room are great options. Again, the Counseling Center at UNK is totally free for students. It's included in those student fees, so make sure that you're using the resource. Title IX is really designed to protect students from any gender-based violence, and it can also apply to any counseling that you may need, and they can connect you as well. So building a good social support network is essential for having a good college experience, as well as reducing any feelings of isolation. especially for people who are going to college a little bit further away from home, especially if you've not done that before. It can be a very isolating experience. So building those connections is really important. And of course, I showed you lots and lots of ways to access resources that are free or low cost, that you can access even after you graduate or are no longer in the Kearney area. So, again, reach out if you have any concerns. There are lots and lots of people here at UNK as well as just in the community that are really invested in making sure that you have appropriate mental health resources. So I hope you find this information helpful. And while a lot of this information I hope you never need, we also know that's not realistic and it's important for you to have access to that.